Hello, Coolman229 here with another Topic of the Week video. It's December, which means it's Christmas month, and that means a whole slew of video game topics. This time, all centered around the Halo series. This week's topic was submitted by Tumblr Anon, and their topic is: can you talk about how 343's games missed the point? What made Halo 4 and Halo 5 fail, particularly with their stories? Now you see, I'm a bit of a fan of Halo. You know, I even read the books. I really love the universe and I love the characters. So I always get really into the stories for the Halos, even the stories for the Halo games. And I even have to say that when I found out about Halo 4, despite any reservations I had, I was actually super excited about it. Yes, I was actually excited about Halo 4. And I had a lot of hope in it, and 343 seemed like they knew what they were doing until we actually saw the story. And it was nothing more than really, really bad fan fiction. I remember the first time I saw actual part of the story of Halo 4, and I was walking in on a friend playing it at her dorm, and I saw people get turned into data, and I was just like, fascinating. That caused me to lose all interest in the franchise. Like, I wasn't super duper into it until, after that, but I'd always followed Halo. I had friends who were really into Halo. They would always tell me about the stories. Anytime one of the new games came out or one of the new books came out, they would tell me about stuff. Like, I had a friend who would tell me all the stuff about, specifically, Ghost of Onyx had come out, and he was telling me all the stuff about the Spartan 3s and Blue Team, and there was just me, high school me, going, I don't know who any of these characters are. Now, I eventually, I didn't know who Blue Team was. I learned a little bit about that. I knew the ending of Ghosts of Onyx before I knew anything from the Fall of Reach, which is kind of funny to me. But Halo 4 it's fascinating just how bad it is. I see a lot of people who are like, oh, Halo 4 is the best written campaign in the series. No. This is stupid fan fiction. And it's blatantly contradicting all the previously established lore. Because, there was always this sort of mystery of whether the Forerunners were just, aliens or whether they were, just ancient humans. And, we never really knew. And it was just one of those mysteries that existed that people would debate. Then Halo 4 is just like, nope, there are ancient humans and they were more advanced than the Forerunners? There was a human Forerunner war? Then why were the humans reclaimers? You're really not supposed to be asking questions. You're just supposed to sit there and go, yep. And we have the Didact, who, if you know about the terminals from Halo 3, you have the Didact and the Librarian, and there was all that whole story with Medicant Bias, and offensive bias, and how Medicant Bias betrayed the Forerunners to the Flood, and then we have the Didact as the main villain of Halo 4, and they're like, is this the same Didact? The answer is yes and no. I actually looked this up, and a facepalm just wasn't enough. No, these are two separate characters. I'm not even going to be bothering into calling them Didac or whatever, but you see, the Didac went bad, and he went crazy, and so they imprisoned him, and then they cloned / reincarnated him to make another Didac, and this is supposedly the Didac from the Halo 3 terminals. It's like, I thought, no, let me stop you there. You cloned him, and just that feels to me like they realized, oops, we have a plot hole here. Why are there two Didacts who seem to have the same relationship with two librarians? Oh, no, wait, no, it's cloning. This is I mean, it's like, it's not that so much I refuse to accept that the Forerunners had that technology, but it's just, it feels like such a slapdash, desperate excuse. No, look, it's not a plot hole. Oh, something I forgot to talk about this with Halo 4. There's so much you could talk about with Halo 4, particularly with how Chief was some sort of fulfilling some sort of Forerunner prophecy. He's basically the chosen one, and he's the next step in human evolution, which is something that Halsey talks about in the very beginning, which I need to talk about that. But, all that Chief stuff is stupid, where, I always hear people complain that Bungie were horrible and stupid because they made Chief out to be a savior type. And then you have him literally being turned into Space Jesus in Halo 4 with the Librarian. And the Librarian deciding to just info dump a whole bunch of important information on you out of nowhere. And it's just yeah, I know a lot of people are this answers some questions I had, but I was just so dazed with just having all this information just, shoved in your face. It's dumb. And you have to read terminals in order to actually, get some more details. And no, you shouldn't be hiding important information. Oh, yeah, but one thing I want to talk about, and this leads into another point, which could be its own separate topic video. In the very first cutscene, the opening cutscene for Halo 4, it's an interrogation by Halsey, or Halsey is being interrogated about the Spartan 2 program, and a bunch of confusing and vague flashbacks and stuff, and I still hate that they retcon the look of Chief's armor, the armor, the armor he wore in Halo 2 and Halo 3, they retcon that design for absolutely no reason other than, I guess they wanted to be different, but, that's a, topic of another day. But, now, anyone who actually knows stuff from the expanded universe, particularly with Ghosts of Onyx, your immediate question is going to be, how did she get off of the shield world in Onyx? Because she, Blue Team, Mendez, and several Spartan 3s were stuck in that shield world. They had no way of getting out. How did they get out? Well, I'm glad you asked, because you have to go read more books. And you're going to read comics, and you're going to have to go watch movies, you're going to have to listen to podcasts, you're going to have to go translate ancient Norse runes in order to understand what's going on in this game. Yeah, it's not explained. Now, if you haven't read the books, then, you wouldn't really be asking what's going on with Halsey. But you have to read the books. So when you do read the books, you're going to be wondering, how did she get out? It's so stupid because I could talk I could do a whole topic video just on talking about how 343's handling of the EU differs from Bungie's handling of the EU, and how it how they interact with the games. Because with Bungie, you don't need to read this in order to understand this. The story's self-contained. And none of the games, you don't need to read any of these books in order to understand any of Bungie's games. I mean, heck, Halo Reach was the most lore-heavy. It's the one that makes the most references to the books. You have Dr. Halsey appearing. You have several things from the books. It's fairly small stuff overall, but it's the only one that actually really does that. So, when you get to Halo 4, and you have to be reading the books. You have to be reading the EU because they spread the story out. They don't make it concise. They don't. I mean, it's like if you were playing Halo 2 and you had literally no scenes with the Covenant. You had nothing with the Arbiter. Nothing. And that was all a whole trilogy of books that you had to read in order to understand what's going on with the Arbiter. By the time you get in there and you end up siding with the Arbiter, you're just like, really? Who is this guy? Yeah, you don't really know him, like you do when you played the Arbiter. I mean, shoot, if you took out You know, even better. It's if you just straight up took out all the stuff on Earth. Everything up to them finding the next Halo. Literally, in that next Halo with just Master Chief, that's basically what a lot of this is. It's like, oh, you want to know what's going on here? You're going to have to read more books. You're going to read more comics. And no. Now, I could do a whole topic video on that stuff, so I won't dwell too much on it, but that's a big point. You can't go into these new games without reading. It gets worse in Halo 5. Yeah, how did Buck become a freaking Spartan? Oh, it's stupid. It's stupid. Because I just, like, it angers me. As someone who is, a big fan of Halo 3 ODST, what 343 and those stupid writers, what they did to these characters is unforgivable. They kill off the rookie. I like the rookie. He doesn't talk much, but I like the rookie. Yeah, some of them are traitors. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Yeah, and then Buck's so depressed he gives up command and ends up becoming a Spartan. Oh, all that heartbreak just to force a popular character into the main games. Include the whole team. Include Buck and his whole team. Include Dare into the games. If you want to do fan service, you've missed the point. You missed the point. People don't like Buck just because he's Buck. Yeah, he's basically Nathan Fillion, Space Marine. But people didn't just care about him just because of that. There's a reason why a lot of people like Buck. It's because he's a fun character. It's because, ODST was actually a rather entertaining game. The dialogue was actually, good. And then you get Buck's fairly dry lines in Halo 5, and it's like, no. Oh yeah, by the way, Locke, who is the primary protagonist, you only get to play as Chief for a few missions in Halo 5. It's mostly Team Osiris, because they want to push those characters. Who's Locke? There's a movie you gotta watch, and it still doesn't really explain it. Who's Olympia Vale? I'm sure there's a book that you can watch, or a book that you can read. Who's Tanaka? Good question. Who is Tanaka? And with Osiris, like particularly with Olympia Vale, I wanted to like those characters, but they're just so poorly handled. And it leaves a bad taste in my mouth seeing Buck as a Spartan. And he's an ODST. Let the ODSTs be ODSTs. It's like they wanted to get rid of the ODSTs and make them Spartans. That was the whole point. Did you guys not, do you guys not understand the whole, conflict between the ODSTs and the Spartans, their one-sided rivalry? The fact that the ODSTs are jealous of the Spartans being super soldiers, because the ODSTs are the cream of the crop. They're the best of the best. They're the hell jumpers. And then the Spartans can do what 10 of them can do without breaking a sweat. Like, yeah, there's 8 rivalries. But no, they're all Spartan 4s now. Yeah, and apparently Spartan 4s don't have as much intense augmentations as the Spartan 2s, but they can be stronger. How? Because their armor is stronger? Well, didn't Chief and the rest of them switch to the new armor as well? Also, if the new armor is so powerful that it can put them on par with a Spartan 2, then would the armor be too powerful for them and tear them apart like the Mjolnir armor did to an average soldier? You have all these questions, and this stuff isn't in the game. They don't sit down and explain anything to you. I mean, yeah, Bungie's era of games didn't really sit down and explain a whole bunch of stuff to you. I think maybe I remember specifically in some making of, there was a whole thing involving the Arbiter talking to one of the prophets, and he went on basically about the whole history of the Covenant, and they had all all this stuff, And, you know, they ended up cutting it and simplifying that scene. And that stuff still exists in the lore, but it was just too much unnecessary information for the game, so they didn't, you know, dump it on you. But they still told you some important stuff. You still know who those characters are. Now, sure, stuff like the Grave Mind just kind of came out of nowhere. There was, you know, Halo 2 had a lot of cut content, but you never came out of those games feeling like, I have no idea what anyone is doing here, like you do with the other games, because the other games are so incomplete. And even when you do have full context, like even if I've scoured the wiki looking at all the details here, I still come out of this going, what? And, you know, it's funny because, you know, I'm not saying that like Bungie was ever flawless or perfect, because I mean I still severely disagree with the idea, or with the choice they made to kill Miranda Keyes and Sergeant Johnson in Halo 3. I thought that was a terrible idea, and you can see the lack of, you know, Sergeant Johnson. You can see how bad that hurts these games, and they're trying so hard. They tried to have Sarah Palmer make these quips, you know, I thought you'd be taller, Chief. And no one liked Palmer, particularly when you get the Spartan Ops, which isn't part of the main game for Halo 4, because that's a separate mode. Because we have to split the story up into different parts so that people actually play them and buy them. And yeah, I just won't go too deeply into Palmer, but like, I know a lot of people were feeling like they were trying to make Palmer the new Johnson. And Johnson was just ridiculous. Johnson was basically the comic relief side character with a gun. He's the one who made those big, you know, goofy speeches in Combat Evolved. He's the one who has these, you know, wacky lines. I remember in because there's basically no real way to explain how he survived the first game. So when he shows up in Halo 2, someone's like, "Hey, you gonna tell us how you got off the Halo?" And he's like, "That's classified." And they just drop it at that. And then you have you know Sergeant Johnson's banter with everyone, banter with Chief. You know, the way he talks to everyone, he makes these goofy, grandiose statements, and he was the lighthearted element that really kept a lot of this stuff from being too serious. And his death scene wasn't like terrible completely. It was a competently done one, but considering that, you know, Sergeant Johnson is such a real key character into balancing out a lot of the elements. I mean, sure, if it's the last game in the series, who cares if he dies? But when you're continuing the story, you can really feel the lack of, you know, Sergeant Johnson. And it's like 343 just can't grasp the concepts of, you know, not being super ultra serious. Now, one of the things, I have to say this, I've ragged on Halo 4 quite a bit. I honestly believe that a more personal, more grounded story for Master Chief is the right way to go after Halo 3. Because this right here was the big finale to all this build-up. You have, you know, what ends up being 4 canonical games, you know, building up to Halo 3. And then you save the universe and everything. And a story that delves into Chief's character more and tells a more personal story. I like that idea. That's a great idea. I have rewritten Halo 4, which of course I have. And that's actually the approach that I take too when I write it. Because focusing on Chief's character is something that the games haven't really done. Now, these have done it. You know, you get Chief's character in these. Not really this one because he doesn't really appear in it. But you get Chief's character. You know who Master Chief is. You know who John 117 is. But the games never delved into that. So if the games were going to be incorporating expanded universe, which I feel that, you know, after, you know, 10 years, that the games really started to need to incorporate expanded universe stuff, which is fine. That's cool. I agree with that. I like the fact that Halo Reach did do that sort of stuff, but then you want to move a little bit farther, start introducing some stuff, introducing properly the idea of Spartan 3s, bring more of Dr. Halsey in. And maybe tie the events of the games into the events of the books more, and actually have, the games continue a lot of stuff from the books. But here's the careful thing, and this is something that I ran into when writing it. You need to make sure that you're not writing this so that the only people who know what's going on have read all of this. Because you need to make sure that, people who've only played the games can understand this too, and 343 just never does that. When they bring in Blue Team, Chief's family, his closest friends, some of the only living Spartans left after the fall of Reach, they don't get an introduction. They're literally just there in Halo 5. They just show up. And sure, you have nice little interactions occasionally, but they don't actually sell you what the relationship of Chief with Blue Team is. Like, they say, oh well, they train together. Yeah, you basically just get a they train together line. That's basically all you get for their relationship to each other. No, it goes so much deeper than that. They trained together since they were like 6. They fought, they bled, they lived, they were family to each other. The Spartans, they got each other. They were on the same wavelength. And some of them, particularly like John and Kelly, best friends. There's a reason why so many people ship John and Kelly. Like, their relationship is so close. And after the death of Sam, their other best friend from training, that deeply affected them. To just reduce Blue Team to, they train together, completely misses out on all the context. So you're taking all the history from this, all that they went through, their decades of service together, watching their brothers and sisters die in the battlefield. No, they just train together. That doesn't even scratch the surface of their relationship, and you wouldn't understand their relationship unless you've read the books. And that's a problem. If you're bringing in Blue Team, I would rather them not bring them in at all than to just throw them in just so they can justify 4-player co-op. When you have expanded universe material in here, you need to make sure that you're writing the game story so that this stuff is clearly explained to the audience. This would be like if you brought in the time-traveling Forerunner crystal from First Strike, which I think they legitimately could. There's a lot of stuff that you can do with that. I mean, I have plans for stuff that you could do with that. But if they're just like, oh yeah, it's the Forerunner crystal, and then everyone's just like, yeah, and then the person playing the game would be like, what's a Forerunner crystal? And no one would know what it is. It's funny, like when I have in my outline for Halo 4, I include a lot of flashback missions to missions that Chief is on with Blue Team. So that so that gets the player familiarized with Blue Team, and you get to see them, and their history together. And then you have Chief talk to Cortana about it, and then you can really let that reflect, you can actually learn more about them and gain Chief's insight so that you get more of a personal view of things that, you just simply never got because in these games, stuff was constantly blowing up, and they never had any time to stop. So, like I said, the personal story is an interesting idea, and I like it. It was just handled wrong, and they still tried to make it a big, bombastic story with quick time events and Cortana dying. Well, which that was stupid enough. oh, she's going rampant. And rampancy might be one of the only, concepts from the expanded universe that they actually brought in and actually bothered explaining. Because if you don't know that it's established in the books that smart AIs like Cortana, who are, they are based on a human brain, they only have a lifespan of about 7 years before they just start deteriorating. The process of creating, AIs like that is not perfect. And Cortana is based off of Dr. Halsey, like a mother to Spartans, which is another reason why I feel like the whole, the shipping between Chief and Cortana always feels weird, because she's based on someone who's basically his mom. And they go with this weird, and Halo 4, that's another thing Halo 4 misses the point on. They go with this weird romantic angle. Like, I guess if you really wanted to, you could take the Halo 3 stuff as romantic. But really, when you realize that Chief basically has lost everyone he's considered friends and family, everyone, Halsey, the Spartans, Mendez, so many people around him have died, and Cortana's like one of the only people that he's had he's known since, for at least a decent amount of time, because they've really only known each other for, like, what, 5 months? I have to go back and check the actual dates from First Strike to Halo 3, but yeah, they really haven't known each other for that long. They met each other not too long before the fall of Reach, but anyway, I'm delving too far into the EU stuff, but that romance stuff, and they really make it feel romantic in the Halo 4, and it never sat well with me. Like, Cortana's just like, I wanted to touch you, Chief. And I was just like, 10 out of 10, game of the year. Cortana wanted to touch Chief. Cortana wanted to touch Chief? That's what she wanted to do? It's like, by the time you get to the ending, you're just like, just end it already. And Cortana dies, which is dumb. Which I really feel there should have been a way to save Cortana. At least make an exception for Cortana, one of the most well-known, beloved characters in the franchise. Oh, no, they did. She comes back as an evil AI overlord in Halo 5. Again, talk about missing the point. Why even bother bringing her back if all you're going to do is crap on her? Oh, and I'm sure there's some sort of explanation we'll get probably in another book or comic or movie or podcast or interview or Ancient Norse runes. And you say what's the problem with this? Trying to figure out the story shouldn't be exhausting. It shouldn't, like, you can sum up the story of this in just a few sentences. The Chief gets trapped on weird alien thing. Chief shoots things. Chief gets off after blowing it up. That's basically the plot of Halo Combat Evolved. Sure, things get a little more complicated with Halo 2 once you introduce the Arbiter and stuff, but it's interesting stuff, and the important things are in there. And you don't need to constantly be doing homework, and you don't need to be scouring the wiki just so that you have a semblance of an idea of what's going on. And you're not throwing in these characters and trying to actively downplay the Master Chief like they do in Halo 5 so they can prop up gosh darn Locke. And, I also should talk about the radically misleading marketing. And yeah, there was some misleading marketing with, Halo 2 in particular. I know, they built it up as the fight for Earth, and then, you leave Earth. But at least Halo 2 is good. Halo 5 is just awful. Even people who like Halo 4 don't like Halo 5. And it's so weird. It's like, man, Halo 5 is so bad. Even the people who think that Halo 4 is good think it's bad. And it's like, Locke, who is milk toast. Oh my gosh. He is the most bland white bread character I've seen. Locke is, and honestly, what's so stupid is that the trailers built him up as this eloquent, borderline villainous, poetry spouting hunter, which is so interesting. But then he's just bland. And he and Master Chief have a fight, which my favorite description of the Locke versus Chief fight It was two fat guys fighting over the last Big Mac. That fight was so terrible. But there's just, honestly, I can't go over all the issues, but 343 missed the point. They really screwed up bad. And it is so disappointing that the canon of Halo has become so poisoned. It's basically become what the new Star Wars, canon is, just a total absolute mess. And that's disappointing because, as you know, I love these. If they wanted to tie in the expanded universe material, I say go for it. Yeah, just explain what's going on, because I have to admit that by the time I got to Ghosts of Onyx, it was starting to feel kind of obvious how much there was an obvious mandate that this could not step on the toes of the games, which is good. I don't want them constantly contradicting each other. But it gets to the point where Master Chief could not be with these guys because he had to be in the games, and he had to be the only Spartan in the games, because there's explanation for what the other Spartans are doing at the beginning of Halo 2. And I would just have loved to have Blue Team properly introduced into the main games. I know a lot of people are really excited. The only thing that really caught my attention with Halo 5 was I saw some gameplay and I saw the Spartans and I saw the name Kelly, Fred, and Linda, and I saw it and I was like, Blue Team? Blue Team! And I checked out the game and I'm like, well, that was a waste. And really, I think that can be described. That's the best way to describe all this is, what 343 does. That was a waste. Whether it's mischaracterization of Chief, or not even having Chief in the story, or trying to force in expanded universe stuff, particularly their new era of expanded universe, into the main games without explaining them and forcing the audience to go out of the games in order to understand things, without providing what I feel would be a necessary gosh darn codex like in Mass Effect. I think that would help, but they didn't do that. They didn't provide a codex so that, hey, all this stuff that you don't know, we'll put it in the game so that you can get the important information. But no. But yeah, 343 missed the point on a lot of stuff, and I think I've talked about this long enough. I'm sure this video has gone on longer than I had intended. I didn't mean for this video to be too long, but once I get it started, it's hard to stop. Well, if you want to submit a topic to me, you can go into my blog on my Tumblr, and you can send me an ask and do topic : and then whatever topic you want me to talk about. Or if you're on YouTube, you can simply comment below with what you want me to talk about. If you want to watch last week's topic video, you can check that out here. If you want to watch next week's topic video, you can check that out here when I get that done. And thank you for watching.